Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the PTA Council and the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. I think the role of the board and the superintendent is complementary. The board and the superintendent should have a shared vision and common goals. It is the joint responsibility of the board and the superintendent to communicate with all stakeholders and to advocate for resources. It is most appropriate for the board to set policy and monitor progress, and they can choose the deliverables, whether they be monitoring reports or what have you. It is the superintendent's job as CEO, or what I like to call Chief Educator Officer, to implement the policy through procedures and staffing to accomplish the goals that the board has set forth. I think the appropriate role of a board member is to process information, to listen to input from both the administration as well as the community, to cast an informed vote, and then when decisions are made, to abide by majority rule. My style has been really to do that on past boards that I've served on, and if elected, I certainly would hope to be an integral part in decision-making and direction setting for the district. Thank you.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the PTAs of Greenwich for putting on this wonderful event. Regarding the role of the board, as well as the complementary role of the superintendent, it's one of the most important questions that we'll face in these next 4 years. As you know, in many times past, those roles have gotten a little bit mixed up, and every time that they do get mixed up, it's a recipe for trouble. I think the responsibility of a board member and the board itself is to set policy and set the strategic direction for schools. That's the proper sphere of responsibility for the board. It also has a responsibility, because we're elected by the public, as an oversight role of the actions of the administration, and we have to monitor how schools are in fact performing. It is our specific responsibility to advocate on behalf of the people who elected us, and it's also our responsibility to maintain very good, strong relationships between the board and other parts of town government, particularly the BET. It is the responsibility of the superintendent to administer schools, and I think anytime that the administration gets involved in policy or the board gets involved in micromanaging, it's a recipe for trouble, and I try to stay in my proper sphere, have done, and I'll continue to if I'm reelected in the next 4 years.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again to the PTA Council and League of Women Voters for this evening. The role of the board, to me, is the big picture thinker. We would be in setting policy. The board is the one who is going to ask the tough questions, the new questions. Education is fluid. We'll be dealing with different issues at different times. You will have that by setting clear, consistent direction to the superintendent. He and his administration can then identify the actions that are required. Throughout this whole process is communication, and communication is going to go in multiple directions. It is parent to child, school to parent, schools to the community, the Board of Ed to the community, and to the town boards, and it all interconnects. The PTAs are responsible for their individual constituencies. They will come to the board will absorb that information and identify what makes the most sense for the district overall, and then set the superintendent and the administration on that path.
Thank you, Mr. Felduna.
The role of the Board of Education, I would classify as similar to a corporate board of directors. They are responsible for hiring and working with and evaluating the superintendent. The superintendent has responsibility for his administrators, his staff, his teachers. The constant change that we've gone through over the past few years is harmful to everyone in the system and into the community. So I think it's the role of the Board of Education to try to make the superintendent successful and to focus on, or allow him and allow the board and allow the staff to focus on achievement. The board sets policy, it sets goals, it reviews the budget. A lot of what goes on is really up front. There's one thing that I'll call on the back end of the process that's very important, which is monitoring the results that have been achieved or not achieved by the students and by the teachers. We need to get the information, we need to hold people accountable, we need to make sure that we are working with the other town bodies to fund the district, and we need to raise the appropriate questions.
Okay, Mr. Bernstein?
Thank you very much for holding the forum, for everybody coming out, and a special shout out to my young sons in the back who are bringing the average age down by a whole lot in the group. So, the role of the board is to set priorities and provide leadership. The Board of Ed is the ultimate governing body of our schools. The key way that they do this is through the hiring and supporting of the superintendent. He's the sole employee of the board. The board needs to serve as a check and balance on the superintendent. Is that person executing the mission? We need to ensure that the superintendent is supported in a way that the leadership and mission filters down to administrators, principals, and ultimately classroom teachers. Our constant turnover in superintendents has made this difficult, if not impossible, to move the ball forward. We need to end that practice. We need an atmosphere where the superintendent, teachers, and students all succeed and achieve. We need to bring collaboration and cooperation back to the board, within the parties and across the entire board. We need to take into account community input, and we need to build relationships with the other bodies in town. And above all, we need to remember that board members represent the entire district, not just one school or one part of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tan?
I'd like to thank the PTA and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. The role of the Board of Education is one of the most important roles in Greenwich. Our system is Selectmen, ET, Board of Education, RTM. It's a very complex system. The Board of Education's main purpose is to elect the superintendent to oversee curriculum and the budget. There's so many jobs within the Board of Education. Also, citizens' appeal is one of the most important, and you can see from this Board of Education how open they are to hear the voice of the people, of the parents, of the community. I've been so impressed with the willingness to listen. It's of utmost importance for the Board of Education to listen to the parents and to listen to each other. And the Board of Education must not forget that it's about the children. And even though we're doing governance, it all is about children. And on the board, I would like to work very hard to achieve that and to also be known as someone from the west side of town who can bring a different perspective, perhaps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.